Hello everyone, and welcome to this video showing how to build the flight panel touch for Knobster from ALLSPORTSYSTEMS. When you order this incredible product from us, you will receive everything you need, including the screens, the Knobster, the machine cut plastic, all of the hardware, cables, and so forth. To begin with, find your main panel. Either one of them will work. They're both the same. And the 3-inch long bolts and K-lock nuts that are provided with your package. We're going to install these bolts around the entire perimeter of your first panel, making sure that the bolt faces into the textured side of the plastic, and then the locking K-nut goes onto the side that is glossy. These nuts will spin right on, and then that K-nut locking aspect will grip the plastic very nicely. You can install these all the way around the perimeter in all of the holes that will fit, also including the 4 holes where the Knobster will go. You'll want to go ahead and tighten those bolts down nice and tight with an Allen wrench all the way around, and we'll pick up after that. Alright, now you'll notice I did not put the bolts in where the Knobster will go. Certainly no reason that you have to defer that. You can do it right now if you like. I just actually forgot to do it, so you'll see me put those in a little bit. Next step is to tighten everything down. You can probably just hold the bolts with your finger as you see me doing. Sometimes you will need the Allen wrench on the other side. But the main point here is we want to get all of these K-locking nuts nice and snug around the entire thing. Alright, we're making good progress. Now that we have all of those bolts in place, you can set aside the main panel. It's time to move on to the Knobster. Now when you get your Knobster, it will contain all of the factory new items, including the Knobster itself, a USB cable which you'll use to connect the Knobster to your PC, and some mounting screws which you will not need to use in this case. We're going to apply the Knobster onto a special bracket so that it can fit inside your panel. Here's the bracket itself. We made this one in white. You may get yours in a different color, but essentially it's just a simple plastic part that will allow you to attach the Knobster, and then the bracket will attach into the panel. Here are the components that you're going to use to accomplish this. Much smaller screws here and tiny little washers. These are needed to fit into the mounting holes that are part of the Knobster. So you're going to use a washer on top of this 2.5 millimeter bolt. Then on the other side, just place another washer and a nut. Just a reminder on the plastic parts that you're working with here. The connection points on the Knobster are fairly thin, and of course these are really small bolts and nuts that you're working with too, so there's no need to get crazy with how tight you try to torque this down. Obviously you want it snug enough so that the Knobster will remain well attached to this bracket, but there's no need to over tighten it. So once you have all 4 of these snugly installed, we'll move on to installing the Knobster into the panel. Okay, now you'll see I've installed the 4 bolts that I forgot to put on earlier, and at this point the next step is for you to add 4 more of the locking K-nuts, this time with the locking washers facing upward. These locking nuts are going to grip the bottom side of this bracket holding the Knobster once we install it onto the bolts. So there's going to be a pair of these on each bolt, basically making a sandwich to hold that Knobster in place. You'll want to run these bolts down to about a ½ an inch or so from the bottom. As you see here, you're going to be able to adjust these before you finalize it, so not too important to get that perfect just yet. Alright, next it's time to put the Knobster onto the 4 bolts that are designed for it. You'll find this plate slides on a little easier if you strive to keep it level. Don't let it cock on one side or the other as you slide it down. Now at this point it's important for you to set the Knobster in its opening. You can adjust how it comes through that opening, how far and what angle. Just get it nice and square. You're going to do that by setting those 4 nuts that you just placed at the perfect heights so that when you press on the plate, the Knobster is in the ideal position. This will be the best time to do it. It's much harder to adjust the Knobster after the rest of the panel is built. So pay some attention at this point, getting that just right. Alright, now the next step is to install 4 more of the locking K-nuts onto those same 4 bolts, this time with the locking washer facing downwards so that it will come in contact with the white plate that's holding your Knobster. Once you have these nuts run onto the 4 bolts, you can tighten it up with an open-end wrench and secure your Knobster in place. Alright, at this point it's time to plug in that USB cable for the Knobster. You'll see the little socket down in there. It's a USB-C connection. Just work the cable right in through the top opening and then let the cable feed out from the top. Should look just like this once you're done. Here's a little pro tip. Once we're at this point, I like to take the styrofoam padding that comes in one of the screen boxes and use that now to support the framework, since the Knobster is poking out one side. This will protect your Knobster from getting scratched up or possibly damaged on your table. Now as you get the monitor open, you'll notice on the back side there are only 2 VESA mounting holes. Some monitors will have 4, this one only has 2. That's no problem. As you'll see later on, we have some additional brackets that will help hold this monitor in place beautifully. Here is your main mounting plate for the monitors. You're going to install these using 2 M4 screws and matching black washers. Word of caution when installing these particular screws into the VESA screws into the VESA nuts in the back of your monitor. The monitors tend to have fairly thin metal threads, so be careful, make sure the screw is upright and thread it in gently. Take note that these screws will only turn in a few turns, and we do not want to clamp them down tightly just yet. This is how we're going to adjust the screens inside the panel a little bit later. So snug, but not tight. Depending on how your screen connectors are oriented, you may wish to go ahead and get the cables plugged in at this point before we mount these screens inside your dash. It's time to begin installing the screens into your dash now. So you can get the original panel that you started with back. Here are some of the spacers that will be used to hold the screens tight at the top. The next step is to roll on a locking K-nut on each of the 6 bolts there's 3 at the top and 3 at the bottom of each monitor opening. This is exactly the same way as we installed the Knobster on its special mounting plate. If you recall, we're going to install the screens on their plates just the same way. So get 6 of these on for each screen. Once you have all of the nuts installed, you want to take some of the number 8 washers and slide a washer onto each of those same 6 bolts. These washers will give a little more material to grab the slots on the special brackets for your screens so that they can be held firmly in place. So we want a nut and a washer now on each of these 6, and you can do that for both sides of your screens. And you're now ready to place your first screen. You may want to take the protective plastic cover off. But before you do this, I take that cover off a little bit later in the process, but you could take the tape off and remove that at this point if you choose to. Basically, you're going to set the plastic bracket onto those 6 bolts, and you'll notice that there are slots. So this bracket now can slide left and right so that you can adjust your monitor to the perfect position in the opening. And then remember, it can also adjust up and down in the visa holes. Those are slots that are oriented vertically. Notice I'm also placing a washer now before putting the locking K-nuts on top. You'll want to leave these nuts loose so that you can adjust the screen left and right. And remember that you can also adjust it vertically up and down because of the visa slots. So keep everything fairly loose until we're ready to finalize the position of the screens. Now these 2 spacers are going to go on the top outer bolts. These will help hold the screen snugly in place. If you recall, there were no visa holes at the top area of your screen, so this is going to compensate for that. We're going to put 1 on each of these outside bolts as shown here. You just kind of slide it in between the plastic bracket and that K-nut and washer that you had. And you're going to adjust these so that the screen is well sandwiched in there. It will not be able to move at all once you tighten it all down. Alright, the next thing is to align the screen in the opening. As you can see, having it loose on the back side allows you to easily visualize where the bezel will show in the opening so you can get it perfectly set. You may want to, as I mentioned before, take that plastic cover off. Now's the time to do that before you tighten everything down. A word of caution on tightening these bolts that hold the screens in place. The screen is going to stay put mostly because of the visa holes that you have. The clamping nuts and bolts that are part of our mounting procedure do not need to be overly tightened. So snug it up where it's nice and firm, but there's again no need to over tighten any of these bolts. You'll likely find that by sighting down into the inside of the panel from above like this, you'll have a good way to see how tight that screen is getting. And make sure that you tighten both of these nuts, the one just up against the screen bracket on both sides. Here is where if you have not fully tightened these main bolts, you may need to get the Allen wrench and make sure that the initial nuts that hold the main bolts onto the front panel are good and tight. That way that bolt will not want to spin as you're installing these. At this point, we'll skip forward to completing the second screen, which will bring us up to the point where you have both screens attached. Next thing to consider is your cabling, power sources, and so forth. This will vary from screen to screen. So just go ahead and get all of your cables sorted out. You may have plugged some of these in earlier. In fact, I do recommend that you consider getting the cables plugged in before everything is tightened up and the back panel has been added. Next, you'll see an adapter cable, which if you purchase the pre-configured system where we build it for you, these cables will be included as needed. If you do the kit where you build it yourself, then these will not be provided. Depending on the screen that you have, you may or may not need such an angled adapter. You can see because of the location of the Knobster, you may not be able to get your HDMI cable to come straight out there, so this is why we're installing that now. Alright folks, we're almost done with this build. You've got both of your screens installed, your Knobster, all of your wires, cables, power supply, and so forth connected to your screens. The next step is to place the rear panel on. Once again, you'll see I'm going to use the foam to kind of save the Knobster from any inadvertent damage. This can get a little clumsy now that you've got the wires and so forth, but just take your time with it. Essentially what we're going to do is run on another locking K-nut on every single bolt that you see. This time the locking aspect of the nut will be facing upward so that it can grip the back side of your back panel. So let's go ahead and get all of that together now. Alright, now that we have all of our locking K-nuts in place, it's time to move forward with our nylon insert nuts. These will go on the back side, the outermost edge of your rear panel. These are a nice soft nut. They will not scratch anything behind the panel, and they have a nylon locking insert which will hold them firmly in place. So at this point you're going to work your rear panel into position, textured side facing outwards. Just take your time getting these screws to set down into each of the drilled holes. It's easiest, I find, to move from one edge toward the middle. Maybe once you've gotten a few of them through, put one of these nylon insert nuts on there to hold that in place, and then continue moving forward along the line. Take your time with this and get all of the bolts set into the rear panel, and then you can go ahead with the locking nylon insert nuts to finish off your system. Pro tip here, do not run the locking nuts on so far that the bolt heads, or I should say the bolts themselves, pass through. You'll want the bolts to be buried inside the nut so that it remains nice and soft on the outside. Alright, you're ready now for the final stages of the framework. At least we're going to tighten down these nylon insert nuts just to the point where the bolt itself remains buried inside the nut but is well into the plastic locking part of it. Once you've set all of these nuts to that nice height where the bolt is not passing through to the back, you can then tighten the K nuts that are just on the other side of the plastic. We ran those on earlier. So go ahead and get all of your bolts now tightened up and you're almost finished. Alright, so here you can see the K locking nuts that are on the other side of your rear panel. You'll use an open end box wrench to tighten those. Basically, you're going to draw them right up until they are nice and snug. This will really make your framework strong. The panel will stand nice and rigid once you get all of these bolts on the back side pulled tight up against the nylon insert nuts that are on the opposite side. So go ahead and tighten everything up now on this back panel. In fact, you can make sure that all of your nuts throughout this entire panel are set tight to where you want them to be, and you are ready for the next step after that, which is simply applying the topper. Alright, so the topper, as you can see, has Velcro sewn onto the bottom side of it all along the length of your panel. We supply some small Velcro dots to stick on to your panel. You'll do this, add these little dots to the front lip of the dash as well as the back edge. You'll probably find using fewer of these is better than using too many of them. And also they tend to work the best on the sides. So you see I'm only going to put a few here on the top front edge and also on the top back edge. We'll put a few on the bottom sides as well, left and right, after which you can stick the topper on and you will be finished building your panel. Well, congratulations on completing the build of your very own flight panel touch with Knobster's support from All Sports Systems. We appreciate your business. We hope you enjoy the device for many years and that you'll leave us a positive review if you feel so inclined. Once again, thanks so much for watching this video.